This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, November 5th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of coronavirus, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Anxiety is building as the counting of ballots continues in the United States, where Americans are on edge as they await the final vote tabulation from a handful of states where a flood of mail-in and drop-off ballots sparked by the coronavirus pandemic are still being counted. President Donald Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden both won states they were expected to win in their bid to reach 270 in the Electoral College count that determines who wins the presidency. We'll have more on the race for the White House in just a few minutes. For the up-to-date minute election news, visit voanews.com. Now to Ethiopia, where it appears the nation may be on the brink of civil war as its Nobel Peace Prize winning prime minister has ordered the military to confront the country's well-armed Tigray regional government. Abiy Ahmed is accusing it of a deadly attack on a military base and declares that the last red line has been crossed after months of alleged provocations. Prime Minister Abiy's move against the Tigray People's Liberation Front in one of Africa's most populous and powerful countries is sending shockwaves through the long, turbulent Horn of Africa region. The United States is urging an immediate de-escalation to the standoff. Malawi is the first African country to announce its intention to open an embassy in Jerusalem, despite the city's disputed status and sensitivity in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Adam Reed has the details.
Malawi has become the first African country to announce an embassy to Israel in the contested city of Jerusalem. That decision revealed on Tuesday by Israel's Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi during a visit from his Malawian counterpart.
I'm very exciting. This is a really historic visit. In the meeting that we just had, the minister gave me a message from Malawi President Chikawa. The Malawi president said has decided to open an embassy in Israel and establish it in Jerusalem.
Israel regards all of Jerusalem as its capital, though that is not recognized by most countries. Palestinians seek the city's east, which Israel captured during the 1967 war, for the capital of a future state. Given the city's disputed status and sensitivity in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, most countries that have embassies in Israel open them in its commercial capital, Tel Aviv. But in 2018, US President Donald Trump moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, having recognized the city as Israel's capital the year before. Guatemala followed suit, and a handful of other states have announced plans to do the same. On Tuesday, Malawi's Foreign Minister Eisenhower Mkaka called it a, quote, bold and significant step. He also congratulated Israel on its budding relations with Arab and Muslim states under US brokered deals. The US Foreign Ministry said Malawi's embassy is expected to open in the summer of next year.
That was a read of Reuters reporting. Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan have failed to agree on a new negotiating approach to resolve this year's long dispute over the controversial dam that Ethiopia is building on the Blue Nile. Foreign and irrigation ministers of the three nations met last week and delegated experts from their countries to discuss and agree on an approach so that the talks could be fruitful. Negotiators say key questions remain about how much water Ethiopia will release downstream if a multi-year drought occurs and how the three countries will resolve any future disputes. Ethiopia is rejecting binding arbitration at the first stage of the project. Pope Francis is urging people in Italy to follow the latest strict measures imposed by authorities to stop the spread of the coronavirus. VOA's Maria Diallo has the latest.
Pope Francis has halted his weekly audience with hundreds of people and returned behind closed doors to communicate with the faithful through television. And with the surge of coronavirus cases in Italy, he had this message.
Purtroppo siamo dovuti tornare.
Unfortunately, we had to return to this audience in the library to defend ourselves from the COVID contagion. This also teaches us that we have to be very careful about the requests made by the authorities, both political authorities and health authorities, to protect ourselves from this pandemic.
His appeal came as the Italian government announced Monday it will impose stricter measures to control the virus. These include closing museums and exhibitions, introducing a nighttime curfew, and curbing travel from the worst-hit regions.
Chiuderanno, ahimè, anche musei e mostre.
We are working at limiting to 50% the capacity of all local public transport. And finally, we are looking at introducing limits to the movement of people to and from regions with a high risk level, except in cases of people traveling for proven work purposes or health and education reasons.
Almost 40,000 people have died in Italy from COVID-19, the second highest death toll in Europe after Britain, where, beginning Thursday, all non-essential shops, pubs, and restaurants will close for 4 weeks, but they will be allowed to serve takeaway food. In a pre-recorded video address to a British business conference, Prime Minister Boris Johnson promised on Wednesday to do whatever it takes to curb the reproduction of the virus.
We want to get the R down, get the epidemic halving again, to get this country moving again, and its economy motoring. And as we do that, we will be with you, with British business, as we have been throughout.
In Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel says the month-long partial lockdown that started there this week was necessary to protect the country's health system. The shutdown covers restaurants, bars, theaters, and other leisure facilities.
Und ob diese große gemeinsame Kraftanstrengung
and whether this massive combined effort gets results in November will not be because of the regulations per se, but whether they are followed.
Merkel warned that the number of people with the virus in intensive care units has doubled in the last 10 days. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
A day after voting ended, Americans are on edge as they continue to wait for the final vote tally in the presidential election. The spotlight is now on a few battleground states where partial results are close and which may determine victory between Democratic nominee Vice President Joe Biden and incumbent Republican President Donald Trump. VOA White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has the latest.
In New York, a demand to count every vote as the nation continues to wait for news of a victor. People around the country are feeling anxious, including the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Hopefully it ends peacefully, trying to stay positive.
Ballots are still being counted in a handful of key states, but after Joe Biden was declared the winner of Michigan and Wisconsin, two states that President Trump won 4 years ago, Biden said he's confident that he'll get the 270 electoral college votes, the minimal needed to win.
I'm not here to declare that we won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
Georgia, a traditionally Republican state, is one of the battlegrounds where Biden's stronger support from voters in cities and suburbs could end up delivering him a victory. With the count still underway, President Trump tweeted Wednesday that he is claiming victory in Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, and Michigan, an assertion Twitter labeled as misleading. The Trump campaign is launching legal challenges to stop ballot counting in Michigan and Pennsylvania, saying Republicans did not have adequate access to observe the process.
We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list.
Trump is also demanding a recount in Wisconsin, where margins are slim.
Either candidate in a case is free to ask for a recount when the margin is less than 1%. And so he can simply ask for it. Historically, though, recounts rarely, if ever, differ from the original count. And so it's not likely that's going to generate the outcome that he's looking for.
Hundreds of Trump supporters protested at a ballot counting facility in Phoenix, Arizona on Wednesday night, claiming some votes haven't been properly tallied. The final result in Arizona and other states could potentially be decided in court.
There is any litigation contesting the counting of ballots, the rejection of ballots, the extension of time for absentee ballots. I have no doubt that whoever loses in that litigation probably will be prepared to litigate it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Which means finding out who won could take days or even weeks. Patsy Kuswara, VOA News at White House.
For continuing coverage of the race for the White House, visit voanews.com. Many Americans are surprised that the U.S. presidential elections has been so closely fought, reflecting the deep divide within the country. VOA's Elizabeth Lee hears from two different realities in America.
The U.S. may be one country, but as the presidential election shows, Americans seem to be living in two different realities, depending on their political preferences. This man, who only gives his first name as Jeff, is a Biden supporter.
Sick to my stomach, and have been. I don't recognize this country anymore. I really don't. I think Donald Trump broke it.
Beth Jordan supports Trump.
Well, he improved the economy, in my opinion. My 401k is up. My rates are up. I make more money now, and my stocks have increased, and I'm earning more money.
These two views reflect a deep divide in the country.
We're divided on partisan and ideological lines. We're divided on many issues, social and economic. We're divided in, our opinions and our reactions to the pandemic.
Election night was not the blue wave Democrats had hoped. Polls had shown Biden in the lead in the key battleground state of Florida, which Trump ultimately won. Why are the opinion polls off?
It could very well be that in the pandemic, a lot of these assumptions that are being made about how to target subjects for a survey and then how to reweight the data statistically may well have been systematically wrong.
While the Biden campaign focused on Trump's handling of the pandemic, the close race shows Democrats may have misjudged the importance of the other issues that led voters to support Trump.
They feel left out. They feel as if, they and their families have missed out on opportunities. And I think that's the sort of discontent that Trump has really successfully seized upon. And I don't think that's changed since 2016. In fact, it may have gotten worse.
The tight race also points to the changing demographics and political geography in the U.S.
I think that the predictable support from different, segments like blacks for the Democratic Party, is not something that the Democrats can count on. And I think that they need to really work to earn the votes of blacks and Latinos and Hispanics.
Tracy Hinson from Biden's home state of Delaware voted for Trump.
I didn't see a lot of enthusiasm for Joe Biden. I just didn't.
Biden supporter Beth Johnson says she wants change away from the divisiveness of the last 4 years.
I'm praying for healing with our country, that we can come together, sit down and have a conversation where all sides are heard.
The next president will have to face the ongoing pandemic and its economic fallout while trying to lead a divided country. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News.
Pennsylvania, known as the Keystone State, is proving to be vital in the U.S. presidential race and one of the last to finish counting votes between President Trump and Biden. Isha Sarai reports from Philadelphia.
Both President Donald Trump and Democrat Joe Biden are banking on winning Pennsylvania and its 20 electoral votes. Because counting mail-in and absentee ballots takes time, complete vote totals may not be known until the end of the week.
Yes, the
anticipation is killing me. The anxiety, is running high. But I feel better knowing that all of these states, including Pennsylvania, including Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia, is taking the time to count the votes and making sure that they're doing it correctly.
Much of Trump's support in Pennsylvania is found in rural areas between the major cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Many Trump backers credit his economic performance before the pandemic.
In the 4 years that he was the president, I did make out better than I did in years past. So I'm happy.
But Pennsylvania has not always been a swing state. In fact, Donald Trump's victory here in 2016 was the first time the state went red since the 1980s.
This is a state that has a strong working class population. In the past, that had been a strong Democratic constituency. But of course, that's what's changed in American politics. The working class is now more likely to vote Republican.
Trump hands out now! Trump hands out now!
While President Trump is seeking a halt to post-election day ballot counting, Philadelphia is seeing demonstrations demanding every vote to be counted, with many protesters affirming their support for Biden.
So, we know Philly's going to go blue.
We want Donald Trump out the White House. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to lie.
But Pennsylvania's results and the presidential contest as a whole may not be known for several more days. Isha Sarai, VOA News, Philadelphia.
As we continue our election coverage, a reminder to log on to voanews.com for the latest updates in the race for the White House. One of the winners in Tuesday's election is Omar Fateh, elected to represent a Minneapolis district in the Minnesota State Senate. The 30-year-old, who will take office in January, will be the first U.S.-born Somali American to serve in statewide office in Minnesota.
I'm very proud and honored that District 62 selected me to represent them in the Minnesota Senate. In Minnesota, we're inclusive, we're welcoming for everybody. Our immigrants are first-generation people. I'm able to represent one of the most diverse communities in Minnesota, and not just in terms of race, but in terms of values. We value each other, we value our working class residents, and we value putting our people first. We had a team that was representative of the entire district, from Latino community, the Native American community, East Africans. We all came together as a multiracial coalition. I want to make sure that everybody's earning a livable wage, not only in my district, but in the state, that we're prioritizing increasing the affordable housing units in our district so that we preserve our diversity, but also making sure that we have universal health care. I thought that I was best to bridge the gap between the immigrant and non-immigrant communities. I grew up in a Somali household, but I was born and raised in America, so I had one foot in each culture. So because of that, understanding that I carry both identities with me, I'm able to best serve the communities in this district.
That was Omar Fateh. He was just elected to the Minnesota State Senate. As Americans anxiously await the final vote tally in the U.S. presidential election between President Donald Trump and Joe Biden, Africa 54 managing editor Vincent McCory spoke with VOA executive producer and senior analyst Steve Reddish about why a winner could not be determined on Tuesday's election day.
The biggest reason we don't know is because of the massive amount of mail-in ballots that came in because of the coronavirus pandemic. In Pennsylvania, which is a very key state, it's got 20 electoral votes. It was key to President Trump's victory in 2016. There are 1.5 million ballots that still have to be counted in that election. In Michigan, there are about 1 million mail-in ballots that still have to be counted. And in Wisconsin, there are still maybe 100,000, maybe a few more of mail-in ballots that still have to be counted. So the race is really held in the balance in those three states, and it is the mail-in vote, the absentee ballot, that still has to be counted, because those states just aren't used to dealing with that many absentee ballots.
Would you say, though, that this was expected?
It was expected to be a tight race, yes. Was it expected to go Over time, in some places, yes. The president showed very strong support in Florida. He showed strong support in Texas, and so right now it is going into overtime, and there are going to be challenges to the count and various different legal attempts to stop the vote counting. But so far, they're going to push on and count those votes.
So as we look forward, if there's no announcement by the end of, say, today, what can we expect, and what precedent is there in this kind of a situation?
In all elections, there are vote counts that drag on for days because in many states, absentee ballots can come in a day, 2 days, in Pennsylvania's case, 3 days after the election. And in many states, ballots from military servicemen and servicewomen can also come in late. So it may not have been a decisive count in past years, but vote count goes on and on for several days, sometimes a week, and most states don't have to certify their results for another 2 or 3 weeks. So is there a precedent? Yes. In 2000, the vote count dragged on for 30 plus days in Florida. Do I think that's this in 2020? No, I think we'll see the vote count wrapped up in the next couple of days.
That was Africa 54 managing editor Vincent McCory speaking with VOA executive producer and senior analyst Steve Reddish. For the up-to-minute election news, visit voanews.com. The global fashion search platform List reports that tie-dye is one of the fastest growing fashion search keywords of the year. And a Sierra Leonean American Virginia-based nurse is trying to make her mark in the fashion industry. Khadija Kaloko recently launched her fashion label, DJ Dave, and it's already generating buzz in the African community with her unique designs. Africa 54 technology reporter Paul Ndiho spoke to Kaloko, the founder and designer of the DJ Dave fashion label.
Khadija Kaloko, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for bringing me on board.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a nurse, so during this pandemic, I've been spending most of my time at home or at work. So when I come home and I've been indoors, I've been doing a lot of designing, which I've learned from my father and my grandmother. So I've spent most of the time designing fabrics and T-shirts and, selling it online and just either helping others that needs my support during this pandemic. It could be a phone bill that needs to be paid or anything I can do to reach out to friends and family that needs my help during this crisis.
What kind of designs or clothes have you made at your place?
I've been designing T-shirts. I have, different T-shirts that have been this is all handmade, designed by me. And I do, so people have been sending me orders to do specific orders for like weddings and for bridal events and things like that. So this is what I've been doing. This is actually for, a wedding.
Who inspired you to start this kind of thing?
Well, a friend of mine actually lost their job and things become harder. So this is one of the ways that I feel like, well, I have a knowledge that I learned from my father and my grandmother. Why don't I just use it and try to make something to help someone else during this pandemic? And I've been selling, T-shirts, fabrics, and, so because I can make them at home and it's all handmade, designed by me. And, so I spent most of the time doing it. Then anytime I would get a sale, I would actually either, help them out to pay their phone bill or maybe buy more products for, to continue the business.
You said that you designed those by hand. What's unique about your product?
It's handmade and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to design them. But however, eventually trying to go into like the mass production, but I'm not sure yet, but right now I'm just kind of doing something small at home and I'm trying to establish.
How long does it take you to design a T-shirt? Is what you're wearing part of your designs?
Yes, this is one of my designs and it takes me at least, 20 to 30 minutes to design these T-shirts, but sometimes it can take up to 2 hours depending on the design. Like this particular design take me at least 2 hours to design. This one takes at least 7 to 10 minutes, and this would take at least 3 hours to design. This is also made out of wax.
Earlier you talked about how you are selling some of this stuff on the internet. When customers buy your products, what kind of feedback do they give you?
So far, I've had very positive feedbacks from customers, and they really like my design. And most of the design that I'm actually doing, you don't see them out there because it's custom made and it's handmade. And and my clothes are actually not bleeding at all, which means the colors are not coming out. Because I make sure I spend most of my time in the process. The process at which I go, it takes a little longer. However, the longer the process, the more the dye stays on the fabric, so it doesn't come out.
In terms of sales, how much have you sold so far online?
I've sold over 100 T-shirts, and also I get orders from people that are doing, anniversaries, wedding, wants to host like a church events, bridal events. So usually they would order like large quantity, like, groups like this.
You also have other skills that you are an artist.
Yes.
You're a painter. So most of the designs actually start by you coming up with a painting, and you figure out how to turn that painting into a fabric.
What I do is that, usually I would get a canvas this big or maybe a much bigger, and I would draw on it and design on it. So whatever I design on this canvas, when I'm done, I'll process it to put it to the computer, and I will send it to a fabric company that would actually do the rest of the other work for me.
Have you been able to sell some of the fabrics that you're talking about?
Yes, I do sell some fabrics, and some people actually order. Some people actually ask me to make a design, like a specific design for them for their events. And people are actually reaching out to me because they want something new and they want something different, some different design. And mostly what I've been getting lately, guys would order, they want a T-shirt for their shoes. So they would ask me to design something for their shoes because they have like nice tennis shoes that are out right now with different colors. So some guys would send me a pair of tennis shoes and say, can you make me a T-shirt? And I want this design on it. So I would design a lot of this clothes, then they'll pick the design, then I'll put it in whatever color that they want.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
That was Africa 54 technology reporter Paul Ndiho speaking to Khadija Kaloko, founder and designer, DJ Dave fashion label in Arlington, Virginia. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com from all of us here in Washington. Thank you for watching.